3 rings for the elven kings under the sky. 7 for the dwarf lords in their halls of stone. 9 for mortal men doomed to die. 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie. 1 ring to rule them all, 1 ring to find them, 1 ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them in the land of Mordor, where the shadows lie.
Hail, Internet! It's Matthew from the Dorklords, and we have the Brothers Kryn. Awesome. They're hanging out in Canada. It's called The Wonders of Technology, bringing us all together. And today, we're talking about the 5th chapter of Book 2, The Fellowship of the Ring, entitled The Bridge of Khazad-Dum. It's my personal favorite chapter in the entire trilogy. And I'll just say, if you're the greatest chapter in the greatest work of fantasy literature, you can at least make a strong case for being the best chapter of fantasy literature ever written. I get it. It's all subjective. Eye of the beholder, yada, yada. Greatest chapter. But okay, anyway, blah, blah, blah.
I love the part where Fingolfin gets killed by Morgoth. It's such a great scene.
It is.
Oh,
it is.
We're talking about the rings, not Silmarillion. I'm joking. But
it's all in there somehow. It's all referenced.
You don't see any of the Trojans in there.
Oh, you're thinking of the Iliad. Screw you. No, Silmarillion is better.
Greatest.
I love the Iliad, but
ever. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, quick summary of the greatest chapter of all time. When last we left our fellowship, they discovered Balin's tomb. Gandalf picks up the Book of Mazarbul, likely from poor Ori's skeletal hands, who wrote the chilling final entry, "They are coming." The past becomes the present as the orcs indeed come for the fellowship. Frodo is saved from certain death by his mithril shirt. The Balrog appears, defeats Gandalf's spell to hold the door. A chase ensues. Gandalf makes a final stand at the bridge. He and the Balrog fall into darkness, and the devastated surviving members of the Fellowship escape Moria through the Eastern Gate. With that short summary out of the way, Joe and Dan, feel free to take us through in more detail. All right, we have actually a post here for Shelby is saying that perhaps the Houses of Healing, greatest chapter of all time. All right, I'll accept wrong answers. No, it's fine. I accept that as, as I say, it's all in the eyes of the beholder. This particular chapter holds very special significance to me because it is the chapter that was like my gateway into Lord of the Rings. I'd had the book for a long time, from like age 8 or 9, never really got into it. Then my buddy, when I was age 12, he was drawing the bridge at Khazad-Dum. I asked him what he was drawing. He's like, "Of course, it's the bridge at Khazad-Dum. What are you talking about?" And I immediately then had to go back to the book and flip through it and go, "Oh my God!" And I was hooked. So that's what it is. For 12-year-old boys, this chapter is the thing that brings you all together. But okay, anyway.
Well, I was going to say my favorite Lord of the Rings chapters are Ride of the Rohirrim and the Battle of the Pelennor Fields. So
okay, all right. No, those also very good second tier chapters there, Joe.
Okay.
Yeah, for the rest, yeah, no, great, good idea. Yeah.
Okay.
I kid.
No, it's fine. Could
use more Frediger.
Yeah, that's the only thing that's missing.
Okay. No, okay. Well, before you jump in, then I'll say this because I just noticed that Thomas is online here with us. Hail, everyone that's online. So I was texting with Thomas, friend of the channel, a couple of days ago about this live stream, and I was just describing this chapter, and it brought me chills. Just describing it, like I've read it countless times. I remember back in college, I started writing a short story before I realized halfway through, like page 8, I was like, I'm just copying the Book of Mazarbul. It was such an inspirational bit of storytelling. It's in my subconscious. And there's so many layers of tension to it. On the surface, it's just a description of a tragedy that happened years ago, but you're standing in the room with the bodies of the contributors to that book. Ori's describing his thoughts right up to his violent, untimely death. And if you've read The Hobbit prior to this, there's this emotional reaction to their fate. It's great. Anyway.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Well, you and I are both, and even Dan's only tried the beginning, but you and I are both Dragon Age players, like of Dragon Age Origins and Dragon Age 2.
Oh, yeah. I'm playing Dragon Age Inquisition right now, in fact.
Okay, I'm not a fan of that one, but I love the first
middle of
two games. I was going to say Dragon Age 2 is probably in my top 3 favorite games of all times. And
all right, fair enough. Certainly Tolkienian, it borrows heavily from Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yeah. But the thing that I like is when you're in the deep roads in both stories, I find it borrows heavily from Khazad-Dum.
Yeah, for sure.
And like it just the Moria chapters are just they inspired some of the best parts of Dragon Age and some of the best lore of Dragon Age, because the best lore is almost, well, it's kind of, in my opinion, the deep roads in Dragon Age. That's just the best lore in there. Not gonna lie, one of my favorite parts of Dragon Age 2 is just the end of the first chapter where you're going into the deep roads and you have to try to circumnavigate all around through it. I love that part. And
Lobo, by the way, is agreeing with you that the Battle of Pelennor Fields is the best chapter. There you go.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Lobo. I appreciate the support. But that's one vote for Battle of the Pelennor Fields and Ride of the Rohirrim. So that's one vote for that.
And we got Houses of Healing as well. And then 800 votes for Bridge of Khazad-Dum. Good. That's close.
Okay.
It's close.
And 900 votes for The Hobbit.
Okay, fair enough. All right.
Okay, but we accept even wrong answers here. So
yes,
right.
yes.
The Hobbit's obviously wrong, but we'll accept it as a participation position.
Yeah. Well, I'll accept your misinformed choice.
But anyways, honestly, while I prefer, like the Pelennor Fields and whatnot, I have to admit I've borrowing ideas from the Deep Roads, from some of the stories of Dragonlance where they have their mines, the dwarf mines and whatnot, as well as Moria. These have all been inspirations for my own novels, where like Darkspire, Conspiracy, and Brotherhood of the Gemstone both have these kind of, going down deep into the earth and uncovering something you really shouldn't. Although I combined it with French horror folklore type stuff.
Well, there's just this great immersion. I guess a great idea way to put the video game context into it, because just the verbiage, the immersion of this chapter is just so masterful. It really does. I talk about getting chills, and I mean it pulls you into this.
Yeah.
Even that bit where we get after we've read the terrible chapters, they're like the from the journal, and then we get those lines repeated in real time when there's the line that says, "There was a hurrying sound of many feet. They are coming," cried Legolas. "We cannot get out," said Gimli. You're like, oh man, it's happening again. Anyway, that's great. So
yeah,
often
and
this thing is duplicated so many times, but never never.
The more I read this part of the book, the more it feels more like a horror novel rather than an adventure novel.
Well,
I mean, this particular chapter, and you're right, there are other chapters as well, but this one,
like with the Watcher bit, the thing is, Lexi pointed out there with all the tentacles and whatnot, and here there was a hidden horror author in Tolkien, and it's just, like he could have written great horror like Lovecraftian stuff and whatnot, but he put all of everything he had into like Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, and Silmarillion, and a couple of little other tales here and there.
And maybe there's an aspect of him not focusing on horror that makes it even better, because when you see horror genre, you're getting ready for the scare.
But this doesn't. Yeah, absolutely. It doesn't
Honey
give
Bunny
you any.
Press says, "I love horror. A favorite chapter of mine too." There you go. So,
yeah.
Well noted.
Well, this is one. Well, I'll admit, like, my favorite bit of the lore and just the Lord of the Rings is just everything involving the Rohirrim. I just think this is the best developed element of the lore in Lord of the Rings. But number 2, I'd say, is all the lore surrounding Moria. It's just there's a sense of haunting sorrow, but also mounting horror with Moria.
For sure,
that Tolkien really does a great job building up.
Yep. Interestingly, too, just on the in the book of Mazarbul, when Tolkien was going to try to get it published, he took the extra step of actually hand crafting the pages, and he wanted to put them as illustrations in the book, but apparently they're going to be in color, and like the cost of a color print would have been too expensive, so they turned it down. But I think I even have let me see if I have that here. Do I have that somewhere? Oh no, maybe I don't have it. Oh, there it is. Yeah. So this is these are the 3 pages, and then I get a close up of the last page where he's talking about they are coming and how it's written in a different Elvish script because Ori was trying to write quickly, and so you can see it there on that page how it just trails off. This is actually Tolkien writing this as a facsimile of these pages to be introduced. Pretty cool.
Yeah, and what's interesting is, real quick, there's another great fantasy novel this one was written in 1936, where the lead must go down deep into the earth. Hour of the Dragon. Conan has his own Moria type storyline where you have a hidden enemy that slips in, and actually it's the only time you ever have in any Conan story where Conan is scared to the point where he runs away in a panic, and like where he's utterly terrified and he cannot actually summon up his wits to fight back.
We get Legolas and Gimli both are scared, which is obviously a huge deal.
Yeah. So like it's just like you look at the Stygian chapter, there's a mounting sense of horror and terror in there, and then it ends up the last bit is one of the best parts of the story, and I can't spoil that. But
so Joe, other Joe, not Canadian Joe, has an interesting comment. So he says that they are coming, we cannot get out. Do you think this is a low-key comedic moment? Having the characters repeat the lines from the book is a combo of scary and funny, in my opinion. I get you. I just feel like when I hear Gimli saying we cannot get out, I think he's thinking grimly of what because just remember that book, what he just heard in those the pages that Gandalf is reading, he describes, among other things, Owen's death at the tentacles of the Watcher in the Water. Owen is Gimli's uncle. And so, anyway, just to say like that, we cannot get out is maybe, I see it as more of a just kind of grim realization of what his friends and relatives went through in this very spot. So I don't see it as funny, but I get what you're saying. If he was just saying it as like, hey, that's what they were talking about. We can't get out. Look, guys. But yeah, anyway. But yeah, so I see it as more of a recognition of, oh wow, I'm revisiting what Ori and company just went through.
Here's the thing though. Gandalf reads this and we find out that there's the exact route they took. Like they ended up going through the Dimmeril Dale 39 years prior. You have the dwarves who drove out the orcs from the Great Gate. You have Floey, I hope I pronounced that right, who was killed by an arrow in Bow, probably an orc. Killed him, even as he slew an orc. Balin set up his seat in the chamber of Mazarbul, and yet, like, we know they claimed something called Durin's axe, which would be quite the prize considering, who Durin is. I would have liked a bit of exposition on
heirloom weapon.
Yeah, I would have liked a bit of lore there.
Yeah, it's kind of left on its own. We never hear a reference to it again. It's never brought up again in the trilogy.
Yeah.
We can guess. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Do your thing.
I was going to say, for all that Tolkien is both lauded and, I guess, hated in some corners for a lot of exposition, a lot of lore and whatnot. I'm going to be honest. A lot of times I wish there was more exposition and there was more, we got more lore about a lot of details like this. So
he leaves you wanting more for sure. There's he does those hints and you're like, oh, and like these very calculated breaks in the text that make you kind of try to fill in the gaps. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I don't mind filling in the gaps. I just mean that when lore, I wish he had made the decision to fill it all out. And I think we needed more lore for Arda.
If I had to guess about Durin's axe, I would guess it was likely...
It was just throwaway.
An artifact that was passed down to the rulers of Moria. I would guess it was likely wielded by Durin the Fourth when he was slain by Durin's Bane, and then it just sat in Moria for a millennium until Balin's company found it.
Now, we do know one thing, and something Helm. Then Balin is now Lord of Moria. It could be there is a connection between being Lord of Moria and having Durin's axe. Mm-hmm. Like you said. Now, True Silver is Mithril, which is an interesting connection. I quite like that detail, I will admit. But, all right, carrying on.
Well, I'll note that in the films, Jackson actually had Gimli pick up an axe from the chamber, and then he used it through the rest of the trilogy. It's never named, but I think unofficially Jackson was suggesting that Gimli was wielding Durin's axe. That's not in the text at all, but I'm just saying I think maybe they were like, there's a reference. Why don't we have him pick up an axe? And maybe he's got Durin's axe, but
you should have outright said it. That could have been a good way of fixing.
If it's probably, if I were to where would it be? It's probably in Balin's tomb, which also brings up the point of, I wonder why the orcs didn't desecrate Balin's tomb. You would think, that's where the good stuff's going to be. A la back in Erebor, you've got Thorin has the Arkenstone with him, right? You would think, what items have been buried with the Lord of Moria? Anyway, but I'm not sure why the orcs left the tomb alone. I guess I would guess maybe my best rationale would be that because there's a shaft of light that I wouldn't think it's a permanent shaft of light, but a shaft of light that occasionally shines on it. Somehow the light keeps the orcs away. I don't know, but I would think the orcs wouldn't care
another
about.
Theory.
Okay.
That it's a trap, and that the orcs left it undesecrated to lure in others, maybe in the hopes that other dwarves might come here and find it so they could box them in and whatnot. We got to bear in mind, a lot of their instincts are driven by what's programmed into them by Sauron. And so, Sauron knows this is one possible route for, travel to Gondor. So there is that as well. That could be playing a factor.
Okay.
No, so I always thought this was a trap.
The trap room.
They know the dwarves want to get Moria back, and that should anyone, the first place most people are going to want to go to within Moria would be Balin's tomb if they know he's dead. So,
I got you.
Yeah, that's always been my theory, that this was always a trap, and that's why they kind of knew, to expect.
Oh, okay. This
Somewhat
is interesting.
expect someone
Thomas mentions the Tomb of Balin is a monument to their victory over the dwarves. Oh, yeah, that's good. Good point.
There's also that.
So
It's both,
okay.
I think.
I would think the temptation would be too strong to see what's inside the tomb for them, though. But okay, maybe not. They're like, nah, hands off.
Well, it might be that there's nothing in the sarcophagus.
Yeah, it could be a memorial or something, or
like there's only the bones. I mean, like there's
gotcha.
only the bones, and they're content with that because they've already conquered him. And of course, we get mention of how there's drums in the deep, which the drums are going to be following after the heroes for a good chunk of this chapter.
Well, through the end, it's literally like the last couple of sentences of the chapter. You talk about how the doom is like fading out as the chapter ends.
Yeah.
So it literally haunts them through the rest of the text.
And yeah, there's the lines, they're coming and we cannot get out.
Oh, another question. Gimli is entrusted with the book of Mazarbul to return it to Dane if should he get the chance. We don't know if that occurred. That's one of those things that's never referenced again. If he even had the chance to pack it before he got chased out of Moria. Anyway, in the absence of other, what do you think?
I always thought he did pack it, and that it's something in the epilogue. Like it's a minor detail, happens in the epilogue. At least that's what I always assumed. Okay. As for the fact that history is repeating itself, with they are coming and we cannot get out. I think that this is Tolkien kind of playing with a bit of horror here, in that to an extent cyclical history as well. Like, because there's several theories on how history progresses. You got linear history, which is very popular these days in more modern times, whereas the Romans and the medieval people thought that history was cyclical, like it did repeat. Like, just as Rome fell, rose and fell, so too would something, every nation rise and fall, and they're all doomed to replay the cycle over and over again, and that history will repeat over and over again. And the thing is, a lot of these theories were somewhat refined as the centuries went on. And Tolkien would have been very, very familiar with a lot of these ideas because he had read, what's his name, Vito and Spangler and others like them. So, they were some of the most famous. But the thinkers. But the thing is, here is that I think there is a sense of history repeating itself, being cyclical here, because, and I'll just quickly say as an aside, history is somewhat cyclical in Lord of the Rings. If you think about like how the War of the One Ring is a repetition in some ways of the War of the Last Alliance. History has repeated itself with, like Aragorn kind of assuming the role of, Isildur in some ways, and Theoden kind of assuming the role of Elendil in a lot of ways.
Another
At
way
least that's how I kind of looked at it.
In this chapter, another history repeating itself is Gandalf's fall. We have it's not necessarily every Balrog, but there are three notable like big Balrog confrontation scenes in Tolkien's mythology, and you have Ecthelion, falling with Gothmog, and then you have Glorfindel falling with a Balrog as well, and then Gandalf falling. It's like, in other words, in order to defeat these Balrogs, there has to be some kind of a sacrifice, a fall must occur, and we see that kind of repeated here as well. So anyway, another repeat.
Yeah,
type of...
yeah. Tolkien's having fun with the cyclical element and idea here, like you pointed out with Glorfindel and whatnot. But he's also with this kind with with War of the Last Alliance and War of the One Ring. This is more a historic, cyclical history thing. Whereas with Glorfindel, it's part of the history, but here it's about the sacrifice, like you pointed out. But I also think that there's a certain element of it's part of the horror, like that. He's retooled the cyclical element of history on a micro level. Like with Bal, like everyone commented earlier. I'm just repeating what everyone said at this point. But I think also that the horror, this is something that I think now I've been writing in some of my essays Tolkien's writing style, like analysis of how it works and operates and the storytelling techniques he uses. And here I would argue when it comes to the horror, he's been slowly building it up here, but now it takes off like a gunshot. With the Gandalf had hardly spoken these words when there came a great noise. This is when it takes off like a gunshot. In some ways, this is the inciting event of this chapter. But yeah, anyways. But Gandalf orders the door closed because he says, do not close it yet, actually. Because it is Aragorn, actually, sorry for blanking there. Aragorn ends up saying, let's close this door. And slam the doors and wedge them and keep your packs on as long as you can. We may get a chance to cut our way out yet. And it's Gandalf who says, we must not get shut in. Keep the east door ajar. We will go that way if we get a chance. So, and here we really see that in a combat situation, it's not Aragorn who's the leader, but Gandalf. And this is an interpretation of the text that I think is very obvious, but it's, I think, Lexi, again, who's been championing that throughout the Tolkien corners of YouTube for a number of years.
Well, I think that's also, building up Gandalf as the obvious leader that whose word is bond, essentially. You build that up, and then when you get rid of Gandalf, it makes his loss even greater.
Harder.
And Tolkien really sells the devastation to the Fellowship of the loss of Gandalf. It's like, wow, yeah.
Yeah, and there's the fact that Gandalf is the only one with a plan.
Yeah, no, yep.
And as Thomas Ryan just rightly pointed out, Aragorn always defers to Gandalf. But it's also that this is a detail that I don't think Jackson really kept in the movies. I can't remember. But it seems like Gandalf is not portrayed really as Aragorn's mentor. When in the book, there seems to be a mentor and mentee, so to speak, or a mentor and pupil relationship between the two. And
I got you.
It seems like Aragorn's kind of the second command, so to speak, of the group, like a deputy to Gandalf. You know what I mean?
I agree. Which is why when he takes kind of, takes over at the end of the chapter and beginning of the next chapter, there's that sense of like, well, I guess I have to step up now because we've lost our leader.
And what I also like is that we do get Frodo gets a little action because and we get to see him have his own battle cry when he shouts the Shire and stabs with Sting at a hideous foot, which is pretty hilarious because I never thought of the Shire as a battle cry, but it's a fitting one for the hobbits.
It is. It's
better
their
than-
homeland, right? They're fighting to save the Shire.
Yeah, it's better than, I guess, Bag End, which would have been a very silly battle cry.
For Frediger. No, yeah, okay. No, and he gets the stab in. We see that obviously Sting has an effect on those creatures that it affects. So that's it's a reminder. What Aragorn mentions? You have a good blade, Frodo, son of Drogo. Yeah, because he does. I feel like Joe's here. Second breakfast attack.
Yeah, yeah. I like how Aragorn kind of cheers Frodo on, saying "one for the Shire." Like it's like 1 point for the Shire, I guess.
Yeah,
yeah. Good afternoon. Hello, Robert. Hope you're well.
Fly,
you
Robert.
Fools. But well, as for us French, it'd be Montjoie Saint Denis. That's the old French battle cry.
I got you. All right.
A little more classy. That I'm joking there. Than Hellheimer, which was the TCBS's battle cry. I have to crack that joke. Now, of course, they fight their way. They break their way through, and I like how. Okay, there's a detail here about how Aragorn's blow. What is it? A testuet.
Bless you.
Excuse me. I like how you have. Oh no, it was. I misread there. Well, you have Aragorn, who's basically, we get to see him and Boromir, and just how vicious they can be in a fight. That's something that
Boromir
I do
and Aragorn
like. Is
slew
that
many?
Yeah. And one thing that I find the book sells a lot better, I think, is just how deadly these two are in a fight. And that in the movies, or at least the first movie, I never got a sense that they were willing to, they're not really fighting side by side. They're begrudgingly fighting side by side. Whereas in the book, they're willingly fighting side by side. Because in a lot of ways, they're both patriots for Gondor. You know what I mean? Whatever petty differences there are, they can set it aside for the betterment of the kingdom. Because the kingdom is the priority. And this is just one thing that
points out. Yes, four deadly persons, not just Boromir and Aragorn, but yes, they've got some death dealers there. But Joe mentions, what do you make of Boromir's blade not being up to the task with the troll? That is interesting. It's he doesn't have one of these vaunted elvish weapons that the rest of the crew does, and so it shows. Well, and it's considering it's what's going to happen in the next couple of chapters, his bit of a fall from grace and then redemption. Anyway, there's a little bit of that there too.
It's also a history repeating itself because Elendil's blade broke, and this is just a kind of repetition and hint or warning of what's to come for Boromir. His blade broke, just as Elendil's blade broke. Although, that being said, I do have to say once again that, like everything that Denethor does and gives out, or all gifts of Denethor, it falls short. Sorry, I'll never stop hating on Denethor. I actually think that the movies portrayed him as too heroic.
Wait,
I'm one of those people who's
Denethor?
I just don't like him in the book. It's just
I didn't get a heroic Denethor at all in the movies. I thought the movies actually
that's
made him
my point. I was
way
joking.
more. Okay. I was like, wait, do we have a disagreement here, Joe? Okay, yeah. Right. That sarcasm was on full display.
Well, no, that is my opinion. I think but I just have a piss poor opinion of Denethor.
I guess. Well, he's not a saint in the books for sure, but
no, he's a coward.
I mean there's that long chapter in the books where it describes him eating little cherry tomatoes disgustingly while his son goes to die. Okay, but yeah.
Well,
Joe had the same idea. He attacked those killer tomatoes in them. Yeah, yep, exactly.
Yeah.
The tomato
I just
scene.
mean, yeah, that was where I was like, what's going on here? The movie that always confused me. But in the book, I just find like, you read the appendixes, and I just found he comes off as a petty little creature.
There are references to him. What you get in the Lord of the Rings is he's looked into the Palantir and he's been corrupted by Sauron. But before he ever looks into the Palantir, he does have there are elements of pettiness about him. Yes, where he's jealous of Aragorn and that kind of stuff as well. And as Thomas says, he's arrogant. And Shelby mentions he's a fallen man.
He's a fallen man. I just find he's someone who his ego and narcissism always had to, or vanity, I should say, always had to come first before Gondor, before all else around him, and even before his sons. And the sheer spite against Boromir, the fact that the spite against Aragorn, the fact that he won't listen to Gandalf in any way at any point. And I just find I cannot understand why anyone defends him. I even find more heroic traits in Saruman and more things I respect about Saruman, and even Sauron to an extent, than Denethor. Even Grima. It's just Denethor strikes me as an even, I don't know, more.
All right, we got to do an in defense of Denethor video somehow or something. What text could you find anyway? But that's a good point. Could you do a defense of Denethor video and have more than just like a line or two in it? Maybe not, but it might be worth a look to see what that's all about.
Now, on the other hand, I think Denethor is interesting in that he's a shadow to Theoden, because the two characters are in kind of like a
sure. There's
they're in dialogue.
Yep.
Yeah. And, losing the eldest son, it falls onto the second son or nephew / adoptive son in Aomer's case. But Theoden is the guy who does everything right. Denethor is the guy who does everything wrong. But I'm also someone who actually will defend Boromir up the wazoo, and I think he's
of course. Yeah. There was a time when I 12-year-old me was like, he's a villain. But adult me is like, okay, no, he's a flawed hero who gets redemption.
Now, when I first read the book at 26 years old, I looked at Boromir and I was like, this guy's the greatest thing ever. Which was only my first time reading. I was like, this guy's the greatest thing ever. But they continue on, and of course Frodo proves that and tells everyone that he can still walk after they worry about him, because Mithril and whatnot, unless I'm mistaken. And we also get around this time Doom with the drums. I'm not sure about the Doom repetition throughout the chapter in hindsight. It's just such a strange decision. But I will, however, say, well, when I read it, I was like, I don't know about this from a creative standpoint, but this is a book for kids. So from that perspective, I think it's the most natural thing in the world to put that in there from that perspective.
And this is probably something that, as we know, it was Tolkien pretty much had it read pretty much.
Well, he read it in his Inklings meetings.
Yeah, so it's something probably better dealt with verbally.
Well,
For sure.
now that well,
And of course, obviously, the double meaning. Yeah, Joe's pointing that out too. The double meaning of doom. So the idea that it's foreshadowing doom.
yeah. Well, and if we think about it, there's two characters who are doomed: Gandalf and Boromir. But I also think we have to also bear in mind that one interesting thing about the way the text is written is that when you look up how Tolkien spoke or liked to tell stories to his kids and whatnot, Lord of the Rings is really written in a lot of ways like he'd speak it. You know what I mean? Like,
For sure.
in one of the, he was the sort of guy to go,
Hence
doom,
the poetry
doom.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
He imitates the troll voices and stuff in some of those poems he read.
Yeah. So
snare drums.
that's
Yes. Snare. Well, I was pointing out that terrible, in my opinion, Lord of the Rings musical that I went to watch, and the Fellowship brought musical instruments into Moria, and literally like
the grand piano,
a bass, and an accordion. And you're like, okay, but yeah. So that if the orcs were playing accordions, that would be pretty damn scary, actually. Like, oh my god, get out, we are.
And I will be singing of your doom. Hold on. I've got my bagpipes. All right, let's go.
Yeah, actually, the bagpipes would probably scare everyone away.
It would.
I may
so
be part
loud,
Scottish,
so
but
deafening.
Yeah,
Gimli
I
did play
may
a
be
mean
part
clarinet.
Scottish.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, he's like, "Where's my theremin?" Ooh. Oh, Shelby's saying that production was canceled. Yeah, well, it may have been canceled, but I saw it first. So I was one of the unfortunate few then who got to actually witness it. Yes, the one back in April. Yeah. It was here in Chicago. It was like they were doing like it's the little pre-opening kind of thing. And I went and was not pleased. So it being canceled is no great loss, in my opinion, but interesting. I did not know that. So thanks for the update. All right. So yes, we have our friend Frodo is saved by the mithril shirt, and obviously Gandalf alludes to the fact that he knows why. He does. Oh, you've taken much from Bilbo. Like, yeah, okay.
Yeah. Well, I like the phrase. I feel as if I had been caught between a hammer and an anvil. I love that description. I love that way of describing something. And you have, I wish that had become common parlance. There is more, but yeah, Gandalf does say there is more about you than meets the eye, as I said of him long ago, referring to Bilbo there in Frodo. But just to go back a little, it's interesting that, Gandalf always takes point, but he always brings Gimli with him to take point. And I think it's dual. The reason for this is dual because Gimli sees better in the dark than anyone else because he's a dwarf. And Gimli, as I think Robert from Indie Geek describes him, is a machine in battle. He's just a killing machine.
He is in gaming parlance, he would be the tank. You know,
Yeah.
in anytime you're going to pull together a group to fight in one of these like online gaming things, you need the two most important aspects of any of those fights is you need a tank and you need a healer. Those are the two things you need. You need the cleric in the background, like wah wah wah, healing everybody up, and need a tank just taking all the damage up front. Anybody else? It's fine. You got your glass cannon, you got your whatever, but the tank and the healer, that'll keep you on your feet.
Yep, absolutely. And Gimli's the tank,
Gimli's the tank,
as you pointed out,
and he has a special bond
also
here with Moria as well, right? I mean, like this is his ancestral. He probably has more to fight for, perhaps even than the others. Although just staying alive is obviously reason enough. But.
And he's also, interestingly, could you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just that.
Let me try to remember. Because sorry, the dog's barking derailed my brain here. My thinking.
Doom. Maybe it was like a dog barking. It was the dogs of Moria. The wolves, I guess. They were wolves.
Or the my brain's not working today. But as for that dog.
Nothing wrong with pets being
Gimli,
pets.
Yeah, and with Gimli, as I always say, he's essentially Gawain, so he's the same archetype and has the same personality, really, from what I've seen of most portrayals of Gawain. So there is that factor in there that, sure, you have that. And of course, you have the wizard and the tank right next to each other. Interestingly, usually in most fantasy stories and RPGs I've seen, seems that people always put a bit of a rivalry between the wizard and the tank.
True.
Which, it is an interesting touch. I'm not going to criticize it because, I think I've written that in one of my books, but Tolkien doesn't go that route because this is long before that concept. Gimli and Gandalf are generally friendly enough with each other. They never seem to clash like Gandalf and Boromir.
Gandalf and Boromir maybe clash the most, and then as far as from Boromir clashes with Gandalf clashes with Pippin. I would say, like in terms of like if you were to throw out.
Well, yeah, because Pippin or Gandalf's Bane, as we also like to call him around
here. That's right, Gandalf's Bane.
Well, there is that touch of destiny where he's destined to kill Gandalf. I'm joking. I love Pippin, but I have to pick on him a little.
Threw that rock there, brought the Balrog, killed off Gandalf. He's like, everyone else is crying. Pippin's like, mission accomplished.
Yes, Pippin, the one whose catchphrase in a D&D group would be, oops.
Yeah, well, oops indeed.
Or
Pippin was a threat to
it can't get
exactly.
It can't get any worse than this. I mean, look on the bright side.
Yeah. You're that guy in D&D, aren't
That
you?
guy.
No.
Okay. But that guy always has the most fun. But I love the introduction of the Balrog in the book. Because, like they're reaching the bridge. Gandalf's getting excited because, we might make it out of it yet, is the mentality.
Right. There's a little bit of optimism for a second. Like, wait, all right. All we got to do is just cross the bridge. We do the thing. We're out of here.
Which is a very old horror technique. Like, you show a hint of light just before the climax. Naturally, in traditional horror, you have that. You have to have a bit of a tragedy, and you do have the climax, then the heroes make it out of it. All intact. Well, most of them intact and whatnot. And happily ever after. When I say traditional horror, I mean like Dracula and whatnot. That, it had its happy ending. But here, these horror chapters, if I can call them that, I don't know if there's much of a happy ending, considering, Pippin's mad scheme goes through. I'm joking. Uh, if he was ill, he'd hate us so much, or at least me so much. But you have the Balrog, whom I'll be honest, I found him much more chilling in the book than like how he's described than in the movie.
I got you. The
'Cause,
movie,
there's
the effect, the CGI effect was pretty cool. Admittedly, I will say
well,
it was in the animated Lord of the Rings. Woo! Whoa, he looks
I've never
so goofy in that. I mean, they tried to do him like more like a lion. I think they took the idea of like a mane of fire and they tried to make him, but it didn't work.
okay.
I'll just say
This
that.
I gotta see.
It was terrible. I don't have that. I should have that to, be able to bring up for you, but
It looks silly.
yeah, no, he is not intimidating at all. And then when his sword breaks, he does this like a wow, almost like a Three Stooges kind of like a whap whap. So yeah, it didn't play.
It didn't translate well.
I am I'm pissing on Bakshi. I am in this moment. That was a mistake. I'm not Bakshi has some good stuff, but that was not one of his good choices.
What are they? I'm joking. Bakshi is someone who's good at comedy, but his other animated work.
Even some of I'm saying the animated Lord of the Rings was good. I mean, like there are bits in there. It's very uneven, but there are some bits that are pretty awesome. So we'll give him credit in moments.
Yeah,
Thomas is pointing out that the conversation after the battle at the door, as he puts it, was portentous, which almost sounds like a little pun there. But it is interesting that before they get to the bridge, Gandalf is attempting to hold the door with a spell. The Balrog is on the other side of the door, realizes what he's sensing, does a little counterspell. There's a counterspell, and they're basically the force of their magic together shatters the door, which is somewhat kind of like, as I think what Thomas is maybe referring to. It's a foreshadowing of what's about to happen on the bridge, where they kind of counteract each other and fall to their doom. And I don't know about Old Moria, Joe. Joe asks the question. This is the second hall of Old Moria. Is Old Moria versus Newer Moria addressed anywhere else in the story? I don't believe so. I am not familiar with that. So I'll do a little research though. If I do find something in some of the other sources, I will report back to you, Joe, about Old Moria versus New Moria. All right, sorry, sir. Go for it. Continue.
Well, all I was going to say though is that the shattering of the door is a great moment in here, and it is hinting at what's to come.
It's also interesting in that it seems to we do see in the actual text that the Balrog can grow or shrink, like it expands or contracts. The fact that it's on the other side of a door suggests that there's even a hint that like it's almost like a human size at some point. Like it's malleable.
And let me find the exact description for it, because there's a very good description. Let me see. Let's see. Oh, and well, the trolls and the orcs end up, their ranks open, and they're afraid of this thing.
Yes.
So this thing is kind of an alliance with them.
Yeah, I think it tolerates them. And
that's probably a better description. Yeah. It was like a great shadow, in the middle of which was a dark form of man shape, maybe, yet greater, and a power and terror seemed to be in it and to go before it. So now the thing is with the weird appearance, the demonic appearance it has in the movie, my problem with it was that how do I put it? It had too much of a visual. It was too well manifested, I guess you could say, in that, it's just red and black, and the way it looks, I'm like, yeah, not afraid. Like it strikes me as too much of a D&D monster. It's like, no, I'm not afraid of this thing. Whereas, this thing is a shadow. It's it's basically darkness given shape, even as it's there's fire in there.
Just again, in terms of the size of it, there's the part of the line goes, what it was could not be seen. It was like a great shadow, in the middle of which was a dark form of man shape, maybe, yet greater. And a power and terror seemed to be in it and to go before it. So there is that sense, as you say, it's at the edge of your vision kind of thing. You don't actually see exactly the size and scope. I think it can control shadows to basically hide itself and also make itself grow larger.
Because I know that before reading this chapter, I never actually Googled an image of a Balrog.
Mm-hmm.
So I went in to read this part, and in my mind I was forming a different image of what was a Balrog.
Gotcha.
Than what you saw the movies many moons ago, 20 years ago, Dan.
Well, what was the image that you conjured in your head then, untainted by Jacksonian Balrog?
Which I kind of imagined, like I said, a man shape, but all dark. Like it's darkness, and like an outstretched darkness and shadow.
Similar to me, because part of me is like, yes, they talk about the eyes and the flames coming from the nostrils.
Yeah,
but my imagination saw it as faceless.
Oh, same. And except with the eyes and flames.
Yeah, the flames would come out where the nostrils would normally be on a person.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, that's what I remember seeing an art piece which someone drew in 1959, I think it was, and it was like that. And that's how I kind of imagine the Balrog ever since, except you had the eyes and the nostrils of flame. And it just, if I could find it, I might try to post that up at a later date. But I just thought that was such a better image. Now, I'm not bashing Jackson's interpretation. I just think there's room for many other interpretations.
Gotcha. Tinkiyuki describes the fact that there are many size discrepancies throughout Tolkien, and that is very true. Some of these fights seem like, how would you possibly? But yes, so it's unclear. Obviously, Jackson lays into it as it's a huge size discrepancy, but I wonder if in fact it actually is.
Well, I think with the size, I actually agree with Jackson.
Okay.
Like the size, I'm actually going to agree with Jackson. This thing being huge makes sense to me. So I'll defend Jackson there,
because part of my imagination when it read that it would expand. It starts as a bit smaller as human man shape, and it would grow in size to gigantic proportions.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty much how it's described in the text. So.
All right. Well, before we hit one of the big questions, Joe has another one. Said, would Joe think Jackson's Nazgul are close to his idea of a Balrog, maybe?
Well, like I said, I imagine this thing with a face, at least with the eyes and the nostrils.
Okay.
But I kind of imagine the Balrog being darker and whatnot. But the Nazgul, I'm going to be honest, I have never seen any kind of art or adaptation that was not better than the Jackson ones. Because,
Actually,
Like,
I'll give Bakshi credit because I think Jackson was actually borrowing from Bakshi and his design
he was.
of the Nazgûl. So I'll throw that in there. I'll give Bakshi some credit. See, Thomas, there you go. Okay.
I'll even say the Witch King was better. Like I've seen the Bakshi one and I've seen Jackson's, and I really think the Witch King had a better design in Jackson's work.
I got you.
So I really have.
The fact that the Balrog one it appears instills not just fear but terror in Legolas, and then also essentially in Gimli. There's the line is Legolas turned, set an arrow to the string, though it was a long shot for his small bow. He drew, but his hand fell, and the arrow slipped to the ground. He gave a cry of dismay and fear. "Aye!" wailed Legolas. A Balrog has come!" Gimli stared with wide eyes. "Durin's Bane," he cried, and letting his axe fall, he covered his face. Now that is, that tells you something about
The fact that those two are scared.
Yeah,
those two are fearless.
You've come to rely on them as these, essentially fearless heroes, and then in this moment they are both overcome, that they literally drop their weapons. Like, wow, okay, Tolkien is telling you something about the Balrog in that moment. But okay, the question always comes up. People ask because there's a reference to his enemy halted again, facing him, and the shadow about it reached out like two vast wings. And the question is, did a Balrog have wings? And B, if it did, would they actually let him fly? I think the answer to the second question is almost certainly no, because he wouldn't have fallen to his death in the chasm. But I don't think he had wings anyway. I think these are shadow wings, essentially. Like, I will make myself look more intimidating. But it's up for debate. Possible. I mean, there are people that say, "Oh no, it was a winged creature." But I don't know what your thoughts are.
Yeah. Well, my thoughts are real quick. This thing is streaming with fire. It's dark and it's streaming with fire. So it could be that, it's the shadow cast on the wall. But let me find the paragraph with its wings. Jeez.
It's a giant penguin. It's an emu.
I mean, to Australians, they're evil creatures, these emus.
Well, to the Australian mind, the emu is their Balrog. Let's see. And I have it on good authority from several Aussie friends that to their mind, it's more fearsome than any Balrog could ever be.
It's funny. I had there was a neighbor of mine who had an emu farm. And I used to go and stand over by the farm, and the emus would come up to me. And they were never hostile or anything, but they do look like snakes with like a feather duster attached to the bottom. I mean, their necks and head are so snake-like. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, they move like snakes. They look like snakes. They're snakes. But anyway, yeah.
They make great felt hats, from what I hear.
Okay, fair enough.
That's a reference to Australian history.
Tolkien certainly did not base the Balrog off the flying monkeys and the Wizard of Oz. All right, good point. Good point. And plus, if the Balrog did have wings, he picked a really terrible place to hide out, where you're like, I really can't use these at all ever again.
But it says reached out like two vast wings, but it doesn't mean it has wings.
Right. Exactly. Like, as though, likened to wings.
Sorry, I'm someone who just falls, like, I'm not trying to be unimaginative about this. I don't mind, thinking around the text, going around the narrator and whatnot. But sometimes the text is king. It's like, if the text says it was like two vast wings, doesn't mean it is two vast wings. So
Tinky Yuki is describing, I believe. the films and talking about the best part was the image of them falling into the cavern, giving the sense of scale of Khazad-Dum through the Underdeeps. Agreed.
I like that.
That shot, that wide shot of them falling, like wow, it's pretty awesome. It was well chosen and well executed.
I do like, who was it who added it? I once saw, because I was just curious, like I think Nostalgia Critic did a review of the movies, but he had like with that shot, he added the sound, the goofy holler, like woo hoo hoo hoo. Whenever I see that scene in the movie, I just think of that stupid goofy holler. So like I can't help but start to laugh till I almost cry. It's not good. Like I'm not criticizing the movies there. I just mean that stupid goofy holler.
Yes, Limu Emu is greater than the Balrog, is what we're saying. Okay, that's funny. I'll never be able to watch the Liberty Mutual commercials the same again. Yes, and apparently cassowaries are way worse. I'll take that. I'll take that on faith.
And there's also another great choice of language here. Fly. This is a foe beyond any of you. I must hold an arrow away. Fly. And you have there, and you have also the fly, you fools, at the end of the section. And
you do also get there's a difference in the movies to the books, and I kind of maybe I can see where the movie's coming from. It's the changing of you cannot pass to you shall not pass. So obviously you shall not pass is not actually in the books. It's you cannot pass. But I kind of see the point of like, you cannot pass almost feels like, hey, that's against the rules, man. There's a law that says you can't pass this bridge, as opposed to you shall not pass is like, I will force you to stay on that side of the bridge. Anyway, I don't know. That's it. It's an interesting change.
I was going to say the flight thing here is, this is an older fashioned way of saying, like make haste, run. You really come to appreciate that. I was also going to, before we get to the bit about the cannot and shall not pass, is the part with, what is it? I am a servant of the secret fire, wielder of the flame of Anor, flame of Udun. Now, I had intended to look up Anor, but let me see. Now, let me look up Anor. I'm just going to need a moment. I had intended to look this up earlier, but I forgot. Let's see. One of Tolkien's earlier draft forms apparently had a variation of, I'm the master of white flame. The red fire cannot come this way. Okay, that's not as good. And what the heck? That stupid site. Let me see. Yeah. Anor doesn't seem to refer to anything specific, but the flame of Udun, Udun is another name for
right? I
Odin.
mean, as Thomas mentioned,
the
flame of Anor means the sun, right? So anyway, like
okay, I didn't know. But, yeah,
like
wielder of the flame of the sun. That makes sense.
Minas Anor.
Now the secret fire is supposed to be the Holy Spirit from, that the Catholic faith believes is 1/3 of God. You have God, you have Jesus, and you have the Holy Spirit. So, it's part of the Trinity. So he is a servant of the secret fire. He is a servant of the Holy Spirit there, which is the creative fire as well. So there's also, from that context, a bit of a, if you look at Norse mythology, Heimdallr is supposed to be the good flame, the creative fire god, in contrast to Loki, who's the destructive fire.
Well, we're also told that Iluvatar is the only entity that can wield this actual secret fire.
Yeah.
So for him to be a servant, he's saying he's a servant of Iluvatar, whereas this thing is a servant of Morgoth. And so again, it's kind of that. Yeah.
But yeah, and we have this mythological contrast with it being the destructive fire, Gandalf being a servant of the creative fire. This is, Heimdall versus Loki, which is a clash that happens several times in Norse mythology, most notably in Ragnarok, the Twilight of the Gods. And of course, like you pointed out, Eru Iluvatar is supposed to be God, and you have the secret fire. They're connected to each other. These are little details that I found very interesting. I just love this touch from Tolkien. And of course, the shadow advances on him. I like how it's described as the shadow. No, wait, from out of the shadow, a red sword leaped flaming. Whoops, my bad. It's just the Balrog is described with fire and darkness, which has a lot of devilish connotations. And you have Gandalf, who's associated with white fire here, which these are interesting ideas. Clearly, he's playing with color and contrasting color here in a way that you have light versus darkness. And I think it's very minimalist in how he's describing it, but in a very good way, in that he's using color to his advantage. And more writers should learn from, describing things with certain colors and whatnot.
I got you. Right.
Because the color conveys an idea.
Fire.
And you cannot pass. How shall I put it? You shall not pass. How do I put it? You cannot pass is Gandalf speaking with provenance, like with the weight and the authority of someone in command. He's taking command of the situation.
I will note that in the movie, he does actually say both lines. So he does say, "You cannot pass," but then obviously the line everybody remembers is, "You shall not pass." But he does actually throw in the "cannot" as well, just as an aside.
I don't think the "shall not pass" should have been in there.
Okay.
Because how do I put it? Up until this point, Gandalf's basically been bullied and all but abused by the Balrog every step of the way. It's beaten him every step of the way. Like when the door is blasted to pieces.
Right. We see, and then now Gandalf admits that he is he's wounded or he's weakened.
Yeah,
so he's not even at his best anymore.
And like he's been driven with until his back's against a wall. And it's here that he's saying, okay, like that's it. And he's taking command. He's mastering his fate, as Joseph Conrad would put it. He's taking control and he's saying, you cannot pass. Here's the thing. This thing is probably on a par with Gandalf the Grey, but not Gandalf the White. But this is the first hint of Gandalf the White. He is the representative of Eru Iluvatar's will. So if he says, you shall not pass, that sounds more like what a mortal might say. You shall not pass. Like, I don't want you to get past this point. So that here he's more referring to, you cannot pass. Like, it's a firm statement of authority over the Balrog, which makes a lot more mythological and even philosophical sense, given what
preordained, you cannot pass.
Well, yeah, but it's also that Gandalf is seizing control here, like almost of the narrative here, and saying, no, it's him, it's the angelic side, you know what I mean? The Maiar, where he's like, you don't have the authority to pass this point.
You cannot pass this chapter. You will be written out of the books.
For me, I'm a bit of the same sentiment as Joe. You shall not pass sounds defensive. Oh, I didn't think of that.
All right.
Whereas
I hear you.
You cannot pass. This is the line. You're not passing it.
Yeah, I guess that's another way of looking at it. It's just when I was young, I liked to play Valkyrie Profile Leneth, and in there, the writers, the Japanese writers of that video game, did a great job showcasing a character who's a deity, and she speaks with a great deal of authority and providence. And Gandalf is supposed to convey the same sort of feeling, the same sort of vibe, I guess would be the slang term. So he's supposed to be the guy in charge on some level. And it's that the Balrog should not conquer him. So that, I guess, from a linguistic perspective, I'd say you shall not pass would mean it will conquer him.
As Shelby
in that
points
case-
out, she says, as a college instructor, I use those phrases all the time. You cannot pass. Yeah, okay. Well
Yeah,
noted.
fair.
The tough instructor there is what that is.
I would say, Thomas, he does challenge it offensively on a spiritual level. He's the one who's saying, no, I'm going to attack now. He is challenging
I
it.
see from Thomas's point of view, he's saying, it's the Balrog that's being aggressive, and Gandalf is just saying, okay, I know what you want, and I'm not letting you have it, as opposed to Gandalf being aggressive and having to, make the Balrog choose.
Well, I'll disagree and say both are being aggressive. Like, this is when Gandalf goes on the aggression, like on the offense. He's been on defense all the way until now. Oh, yeah, I teach math. Yeah, I get that. No wonder. Yeah, you do have to.
some math failures there. Math was always my toughest subject for sure.
Yeah, same. But like two things can be true. Two things can be true at the same time. Well, we have to bear in mind that Gandalf does take the sword to this thing. He does fight with it. He has to go on offense eventually with this thing.
We're not going to see that in this chapter, but yes, I know what you're saying.
What I'm talking about, Thomas, is a spiritual thing, not like the physical. You cannot pass is when he's saying, he's taking the, he's making a stand, but he's also taking the fight to it on a spiritual level. He's taking authority over it. Whereas it's just sticking to the defense at that point because, well, it's aggressive in the physical world, in the manifest world, in the material world. But if you cannot pass, it is Gandalf taking authority. You know what I mean?
Well, an interesting thing I learned from
he gives
the Balrog the opportunity.
It's
to
him in a way. Yeah, in a way, it's like that. That's
he
how
warns
I kind
him.
of see the scene.
I mean, he gives a warning. I don't think the Balrog would have done the same if the situation was reversed somehow.
Yeah.
But in the Treason of Isengard, which is the book where we see a lot of the original drafts of this chapter, among others, I found this interesting bit that I actually hadn't. It hadn't occurred to me until I was researching for this live stream. So Christopher Tolkien is writing here. So he says, there remain to notice some remarkable penciled notes that occur on pages of this manuscript. The first is written on the back of the page that bears the Song of Nimrodel and reads, could not Balrog be Saruman? Make battle on bridge be between Gandalf and Saruman? ? Then Gandalf, legible words might be seen, comes out clad in white. This was struck through. So interesting. At some point in this process, he was considering that the whole Gandalf the White was going to be as a result of, he fought Saruman the White on this bridge, and then he took over the mantle in that way. Obviously, I think to a good effect, didn't do that. Made this world, made the mythology of the world much huger, and then had a much more satisfying chapter as a result.
Yeah, I don't think the Balrog being Sauron would have been a good idea.
Yeah.
Well,
also, we'd haven't really. I mean, we've met Saruman only at this. He imprisoned Gandalf on top of his tower at this point. That's all we really know. Whereas we're going to know more about him later. So I feel like, anyway, good to get to know him first before you have him fall.
As I like to point out to a lot of people, especially to other writers when I'm trying to encourage them, is that the Lord of the Rings, we got the best parts of every draft, and that's how we got the best novel out of all those drafts.
I got
but
you. Yep.
Like 2/3 of those drafts are utter trash. If you had taken just some of the ideas from those, you'd have gotten the worst novel ever written. And
that's maybe a bit harsh, but okay, I got you.
Yeah, no, that's how I feel
less
about
effective,
a lot of the
for sure.
Yeah, but Tolkien had the wisdom to look at each draft and run through all of them and say, this idea, no. That idea, yeah. And
he crossed it out. So he's like, nah, never mind.
He's like, that's dumb. But that's the beauty of him as a writer and a creative, is that, like I said, he took the best ideas of every draft. Now, every draft had a good idea. It also had some bad ones. So he kept all the good text, all the good ideas, and melded them with, what he later did. And, Trotter and Bingo. Oh, my gosh. Yes. Oh, my gosh. Wooden Feet. Yes, Thomas. Yeah. Oh, my gosh.
Bingo and Wooden Feet. Yeah.
I love Aragorn. But maybe someday I'll just write someone with wooden feet and just put them on fire. Just
to fill out our knowledge here of Durin's Bane and how Durin's Bane got to where it is, and then the history that we see of Durin's Bane. I have 2 quotes I wanted to read, one from the Silmarillion and one from the appendices, that just to show a little bit of this is how Durin's Bane ended up where it did. So in the Silmarillion, we've got the War of Wrath, end of the First Age, and we get this little bit about Balrogs in general. The meeting of the hosts of the West and of the North is named the Great Battle and the War of Wrath. There was marshaled the whole power of the throne of Morgoth, and it had become great beyond count, so that Anfaugleith could not contain it, and all the North was aflame with war. But it availed him not. The Balrogs were destroyed, save some few that fled and hid themselves in caverns inaccessible at the roots of the earth. And the uncounted legions of the orcs perished like straw in a great fire, or were swept like shriveled leaves before a burning wind. Few remained to trouble the world for long years after. So there we get both the Balrogs and the orcs, but particularly we got these few Balrogs hid themselves. It suggests there's more than one. There might be another Balrog under another mountain somewhere, probably another dwarven kingdom, because they all seem to have like giant monsters that just show up and kill everyone in sight. But so you have that origin for our Balrog. He came over to Moria essentially and took up residence. Then we have this battle that takes place. It's the Azanul Bazaar, the War of the Dwarves and Orcs, that takes place at the front of the Eastern Gate. It's the gate that they eventually come out of here at the end of this chapter. And this is happening a little over 1,000 years before the events of the Lord of the Rings. So at the end of this battle, up the steps, we're talking about Azog, up the steps after him leaped a dwarf with a red axe. It was Dane Ironfoot, Nain's son. Right before the doors, he caught Azog, and there he slew him and hewed off his head. It was held a great feat, for Dane was then only a stripling in the reckoning of the dwarves. But long life and many battles lay before him, until old but unbowed he fell at last in the War of the Ring. Yet hardy and full of wrath as he was, it is said that when he came down from the gate, he looked gray in the face, as one who has felt great fear. And then there's a cut to a few lines later. Then Thrain turned to Dane and said, "But surely my own kin will not desert me?" "No," said Dane. "You are the father of our folk, and we have bled for you and will again. But we will not enter Khazad-Dum. You will not enter Khazad-Dum. Only I have looked through the shadow of the gate. Beyond the shadow it waits for you still, Durin's Bane. The world must change, and some other power than ours must come before Durin's folk walk again in Moria." And so we see again this ability to engender fear in seemingly fearless folk, that Dane goes in, must see some version of the Balrog, and then says, "Okay, we're
Nope.
leaving," and they all left at the time.
We also call that nope.
That's a nope. And so it was really something for Balin to try to return, because he's returning after all this time to be like, well, maybe enough time has passed that whatever was scaring Dane has left. It had.
What it's also doing is showing that Balin ignored the warnings.
True.
And that's the first step in a great horror movie. You always ignore all the warnings and prophecies.
Well, and from the journal, it's obviously several days or years, even maybe, or months went by where they didn't confront the Balrog. So in some ways they were like, "Oh, it's great." It was the orcs that ultimately did them in, but the Balrog was always going to be a dead end that they weren't going to overcome.
Maybe it was out doing its shopping. I don't know.
Yeah, true.
But
it was flying around the mountain with its giant wings. It had to be huge to carry the bulk of him. Like, oh God, oh, I'm tired. My arms.
Fatty would have stood next to Gandalf on the bridge. Yeah, of course, and he would have scared off the Balrog.
Of course,
it would never have stood up against Fatty. But that prophecy is also, some other force will. It's obviously Gandalf. That's that other force. That's going to kill the Balrog and make it so that dwarves can return to Moria. So that, like in those old, like in Narnia, the chosen ones are the Pevensies. In this case, the chosen one for the dwarves is actually Gandalf, which is a little funny.
Well, it's also saying Durin's folk, and so it's prefacing or prophesizing the idea that there will be another Durin that will come along. And so it's ultimately Durin the seventh that in the fourth age that brings peace to the area.
And you have, of course, Aragorn's battle cry, Elendil, which is his ancestor, and Boromir, who cries out Gondor. It's cool that the two of them basically rally and just try to race to Gandalf's side, ready to die at his side. And
right, they're ignoring his fly or whatever. There's a bit where he's like, "Look, the
fly.
quest.
This is a foe beyond any of you. I must hold the narrow way. Fly." And he's now in the movie, "Fly, you fools" is directed at Frodo and the others. Here, it is directed at Aragorn and Boromir and the rest. Because Aragorn and Boromir are the ones ready to die at his side. They're the ones who charge forward, not Frodo. And I like this touch a lot more. I thought Fatty was mentioned earlier, but I thought he needed another mention. Yeah, he did.
Never enough mentions. Never enough mentions for the hero. But yes, good point. Dane, the toughest dwarf this side of Azog.
Yeah.
Who perished underfoot. Glaurung.
Oh, yeah. Jeez, he was tough. But yeah, the shadow of the misty mountains lay upon it. We all remember those. I believe they're in The Hobbit. I'm pretty sure that's the mountains from The Hobbit. Yep. I'm so tired I can barely think.
Oh no.
But they come out the gates, and I like that, they looked back, dark yawned the archway of the gates under the mountain shadow. Faint and far beneath the earth rolled the slow drum beats. Doom. A thin black smoke trailed out. Nothing else was to be seen. The dale all around was empty. Doom. And then we get grief at last wholly overcame them, and they wept long, some standing and silent, some cast upon the ground. Doom, doom. The drum beats faded.
I mean, that line, some standing and silent, some cast upon the ground. Like, oh my gosh, you just feel that sense of just loss, literally just throwing yourself on the ground, bawling, even though they just escaped this seemingly inescapable scenario. The loss of Gandalf is so close to their hearts.
This is where
grief.
We know they grieve for some time. And this is where there's a contrast here between Tolkien's vision and Jackson's here, which I have to point out that Tolkien's is obviously superior. Tolkien, well, it is.
Well, it's also interesting because Gandalf says something like, before he passes away, hopefully it's daylight. Like, they don't actually know for sure that when they leave the doors of the Eastern Gate, it'll be day or night. If it was night, then the orcs could keep following them, and it would be a problem. But it worked out that it was actually daylight for them.
Yeah, there was hope at the end of the time of darkness down in the earth. But it says they wept long. So, it's some time before Aragorn in the next chapter says, alas, I fear we cannot stay here longer. So, he lets them grieve. Whereas in the movie, it's like, well, anyways, let's just go.
They do have to give them a moment for pity's sake. They do throw that in there of like,
now,
I got you.
I first saw the movies as a kid, and I will admit, that scene made me detest Aragorn, and I actually hated him throughout the rest of the movies, and I wanted him to die. And
wow. That's pretty.
But the thing is, but then again, I really liked Sean Bean as well in all his movies and whatnot. But the problem was that the way the script was written, and the fact that Sean Bean is much more charismatic than Viggo Mortensen. So,
well, you can understand though. You can understand the motivation of Aragorn in that moment of like, look, we have daylight. This is our only defense right now. But let's make hay while we have the day, essentially. Yeah.
The problem is the way the scene is shot. It's like, oh no. Anyways, that gift is. It's like,
It's a good point because there's a bit there where Aragorn's like, oh well, this area will be swarming with orcs or something like that. But it cuts to him. Look, he runs up and he sees. I think he's seeing Lothlorien. And the look on his face is like he has a smile. There's it doesn't work with the idea that they're all mourning the loss of Gandalf in that moment. It is an odd turn, almost like it was filmed at a different time. And you're like, oh, okay, that his reaction to seeing more Lothlorien doesn't quite track with what everyone is literally sobbing right now. But anyway,
yeah, it's just, I think this is a case where.
Robert's asking, how close is the path down from the Redhorn Gate to the door of Moria? A few miles. I think travelers would not want to go close to Moria. I see what you mean. You're talking on the western side, is I think what you're saying. That's a good question. They had to travel. If you're talking about when they were trying to get from when they failed in their attempt to go over Carithras and then went hence to the door of Moria, that took them some time. So yes, I would say miles would happen. So I would think travelers would not want to go close to Moria. Right? Yeah, you could. Yes, you'd have to make a detour, or not a detour, but you could make a. Don't go near that body of water near the. On the eastern side. Okay, sorry, you're saying on the eastern side of the Misty Mountains. Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to guess it is a few miles.
Just a few miles. Oh, sorry, I looked it up. It's just a few miles.
Okay. Well, there you go. So yes, I think you just keep your distance from the gates for sure. Although you'd also be interested in looking at the the mirror, if you were so inclined, which had to
Yeah.
take you pretty close.
Yeah, as to the grieving, I just think, like I said, the way it's set up here, and even the way, I know I'm getting into a bit of Lothlorien, that chapter, but just the, like just the first lines by Aragorn, I think, where we see Aragorn's grief. Alas, I fear we cannot stay here longer. Yes, he's telling the others, we are going to have to leave soon, but it's after they wept long. And he says, farewell, Gandalf. Did I not say to you, if you pass the doors of Moria, beware? Alas, that I spoke true. What hope have we without you? And, this, I just wonder, why would you cut this line out? This is humanizing Aragorn. And it's just, I found that Jackson ripped out the heart of the character from the character with this scene. And it just, like I said, as a kid, I was like, wow, you have no soul, buddy. Wow, you're not even going to let your friends just grieve. And the thing is, I also grew up with a few people who were like, no grieving allowed. And that's hard on you. So I just kind of looked at the situation like, why would I sympathize with you? Just go and die. While that's where I sympathized with Boromir. And I kind of understood, no, let them grieve for pity's sake.
Right,
so
right.
That's
he's showing more empathy in that moment. Yeah.
Yeah. But then when you look at the book, it reshaped. It's a completely different scene. And so I'm just saying, in my opinion, this is the difference between a novice storyteller and a master storyteller. And I just, like I said, I'm not keen on Jackson also for some of these changes, which tear apart the character and undermine the character.
Joe is mentioning that it was by nightfall. Right. I was trying to remember that this area would be swarming with orcs. That's his motivation. He is saying, we're on a clock. We need to get out of here while it's still daylight. And so,
but it's still, it's not.
But I got you. Like, in other words, he's almost ignoring the grief. Just to like move on. Hey, we have stuff to do. He's compartmentalizing.
There's still hours of daylight. Is my point.
Thomas says, add it to the list of decisions I find hard to forgive. All right, well, interesting.
Which
okay.
You mean Jackson's?
I think he's saying to make Aragorn less empathetic in that moment, perhaps.
Oh, okay. Yeah, then Thomas and I are on the same page again. I think that, like there's a balance here. You know what I mean? Like there's a balance to be had. Like, well, I'll refer to video games again. Now I've not played any of these games in years, but there's I don't know if you've ever played FF10.
Final Fantasy 10? Not. I have done the Final Fantasy game so much, so I'm a novice when it comes to that.
In there, you have a character called Orin, who's a mentor and father figure to the lead. And at a few points, you have the lead who, kind of wants, because it's a story all about death and hardship. And he has moments where, he kind of wants to break down. And you have Orin, I think, who tells him at one point, I know it's hard, but you're going to have to pull it together. Or something to that effect. He's like, I'm going to go present myself to Yuna to help protect her on her quest. So when you're done, come join me. And like he seems harsh, but there's a gentleness to the way he says things. Like there's a balance of gruffness, but also there's empathy, there's sympathy there because this is his surrogate son. Actually, his adoptive son, I should say, because he adopted him. And so I just think there's a balance here, and Tolkien does it well, balancing, you know, the leader with the emotions. But there's also the fact that he shows that Aragorn's heart has been torn asunder by
Yep. I
what
got you. You're right. There's certainly evidence of a closer connection between Gandalf and Aragorn in the books than in the movies. Yes,
yeah,
sure.
and I'll be honest, when I first read the book, I was very swayed by the bond between these two characters. And I just found it like, the character I felt the worst for was Aragorn, because it's just, oh my gosh, you poor guy. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you have nothing and you only have your friends and you lost one. Wow, that's terrible. So yeah,
the weight, because if you think even back through The Hobbit, Gandalf comes and goes, right? I have a thing to do, and lets the heroes try to spend for themselves. Well, then he comes back at just the right moment, saves the day. Great, you guys should do this. Stay on the path. Blah, blah, blah. And so he's always been a mentor throughout, many pages of book, until this moment when you, as the reader, are like, oh yeah, wait, this guy has always been the dependable. I'll keep the story on track. I'll make sure everything goes right. And now you've taken away that, almost like
he's a rock.
That plot security. Like how will the plot stay on the path now? So you do want to know how to, and to give that responsibility to Aragorn, feeling that weight. Yeah.
Well, Gandalf is a rock. And in a lot of ways, yeah, it's like there's a torch being passed to Aragorn. And yeah, like I just like to think of Gandalf as a rock, but now, the group has or the training wheels, and the group has lost it. Those training wheels. Sink or swim. They have to try themselves.
Robert says, sort of hard to depict in an already long movie. Maybe if they filmed a short dialogue moment with Aragorn talking about how long he was a great friend of Gandalf, maybe in Lothlorien. True.
No, I think just keep these lines. This is all you need.
Well, yeah.
You could have that song moment, then you could have these lines like, farewell, Gandalf. Did I not say to you? Like, this would have been enough.
Because interestingly, I didn't think about this until we're talking here, but they mourn big time the loss of Boromir. They spent Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli. They spend time doing a memorial. They sing songs. They weep for Boromir in that moment. So that is a big difference, actually. Part of the reason is, I think, because they don't feel like they're being attacked in that moment. Whereas here, I think he's like, "Okay, let's get out of, keep going on Point Moria." But yes, the story goes on, but Gandalf's fallen out of it.
Yeah, I just think these lines would have been enough. Oh, okay, so like clearly, Aragorn's not taking the loss well, but he's having to tell the others, we must do without hope, which that's actually a very dark line.
Yeah.
Which,
and it's echoed in a lot of ways throughout this thing. The idea of like carrying on when there is no actual hope, but you're doing your best, knowing it probably is not going to be good enough, but carrying on anyway. That's a tough theme to get around. It's a very grim one, but one that humanity has had to face at times. So yeah.
Yep. And you have at least we may yet be avenged. This sounds more like a line by Robert E. Howard with Conan.
Right.
Right. Let us gird ourselves and weep no more. Come, we have a long road and much to do. That's definitely Tolkien. But anyways, that's enough nitpicking. That's for Lothlorien. That's not.
I got you. No, that's a good comment to make, because the reaction of our heroes to the loss of Gandalf is so there's pathos to it. There's this real you feel the loss, and I think it's really well done in the book that way. It's part of what makes this chapter the best chapter in the history of it. Okay, fine. But yeah. So that said, I think maybe we'll go ahead and wrap this up.
But I just have to
what's that?
add one
Go
thing.
for it.
The best chapter has "Arise, arise, riders of Theoden! Fell deeds awake, fire and slaughter. Spear shall be shaken, shield be splintered. The sword day, a red day, ere the sun rises. Ride now, ride to Gondor." That's actually the best ending to any chapter.
If they put a Balrog in there, then yes. But nope.
Yeah,
Nope, couldn't fit him in. He's already gone. Too bad. And then the Balrog approached. Okay, yeah.
He could have just added another one, but he didn't.
Yeah, that's true.
He held out on
underneath Minas Tirith. So next time we will be discussing Chapter 6, Lothlorien. Bring on Haldir, who actually, there's one of our commenters, I'm forgetting her name. She specifically asked me, this was like a couple of months ago, it's like, I want you to do a video on Haldir, the background of Haldir. And I told her, when we get to Lothlorien, I will give you as much info on Haldir as I've got. There's not a lot, frankly, but I will focus on a Haldir backstory for our commenters. But we'll do that over on your channel. What else are people can people find on the brothers' channels, good sirs?
Well, we're primarily working these days jointly with the Dorklords on an audio drama of our book, Crown of Blood, which we actually just sold all of our last copy, so we can't really pluck one up and show you. So, so that's what we're primarily working on. So you could probably find us on YouTube under Bros Crin, which is where you'll find, like I said, our audio drama, which is of our book, but Matt's narrating. So
I'm having a great time at it.
kind of
It's like I do like a chapter at a time, and I just anyway, it's cool. And I'm enjoying doing it. It's a fun process for me. Yes, and Robert is asking when our next discussion is. It's in October. TBD. We'll figure this out. But yes, in October is the idea. So Lothlorien.
Yeah, because let me see. We would need to figure out the time zone difference because I'll be moving abroad again.
Oh wow, awesome! Oh, well, where are you headed this time, good sir? Are you going to Japan or France? Okay.
Yeah, because well,
that's right. You mentioned this before. I got you.
Yeah, shorter contract as well. So, but there's just some other benefits to the job.
I got you. Yeah. Well, we'll get the logistics and let you guys know when that time comes. For me, I put my video on the Tale of Adonel on hold for Hobbit Day. It's coming up. It's right around the corner. And so I'm working on a Hobbit theme video for the collaboration that the YouTube folks do. My topic is an analysis of a poem from the Adventures of Tom Bombadil entitled The Seashell, a.k.a. Frodo's Dream. And it actually has some really cool insights into our protagonist, even though it is technically written outside of Lord of the Rings. It is definitely referencing Frodo and the dreams he's having post War of the Ring, essentially, right before he's going to sail to the west. So anyway, I'll be talking about that.
Sorry
for that.
Thomas had a great joke. Takes them a month to recover. I think this is a double joke, referring to the fact that we hosts take a month to recover from every chapter, or the characters take a month to grieve. So okay.
Well, that's what we're trying to do this in real time. So they're going to grieve for that amount of time, and then we'll come back in time for them to go to Lothlorien. But yes, Nirnaeth indeed. So yeah. Anyway, that's it for this awesome chapter. Thanks for sharing it with me, gentlemen, and you out there in YouTube land. Had a blast. And it's just a fantastic chapter. Never say enough about it. It's awesome. So,
It is.
thank you all out there for joining us. Many thanks to you, the brothers. And we'll see everybody next time. Bye.